It's claimed the man accused of murdering MP Joe Cox put his hands up and said, "It's me." One of the police officers rugby tackled him to the ground. It said he was carrying a bloody knife and a bag of bullets. Also this lunchtime, Boris grins as the PM comes under fire for his comments about the UK's future outside the EU. Then this.
Can the Prime Minister confirm or deny if there have been any official conversations at any level regarding giving Nigel Farage a peerage?
Well, all I can say to the honourable gentleman, I'm afraid, is that such matters are normally never discussed in public.
Thank you.
Trump style under fire. He pops out for a steak and suggests forming a government is like an episode of The Apprentice. And a generation of children spending too long on the internet, taking Google as gospel and hearing too much hate speech.
This is the ITV Lunchtime News with Alistair Stewart.
Good afternoon. The two police officers who arrested Thomas Mayer described in graphic detail what they say happened. Having cornered him and ordered him to drop the bag he was carrying, one rugby tackled him to the ground. They claim he said, "It's me," that he described himself as a political activist and repeatedly said, "Britain first." Paul Davis joins us live from outside the Old Bailey. Paul, tell us what you've been hearing today.
Well, it has been a dramatic account from the officers who actually arrested Thomas Mayer soon after the shooting of Joe Cox. And they've described how that they were in their car. They'd been warned over the radio that there'd been a shooting, and they'd been given the description of a man who was a suspect. They saw this man, it's alleged, was Thomas Mayer. They saw him and they approached him, and as they did, he is said to have put his arms out and shouted to them, "It's me." They then rugby tackled him, detained him, handcuffed him, asked him about a weapon, a knife, asked him where it was. He said to them, it's alleged, "It's in my bag." They then looked into the bag and saw there was a weapon there. We have since been hearing from a firearms expert who is again one of the first at the scene. His job was to examine the weapon that had been recovered. He said it was a sawn-off .22 rifle and that his first instinct was to find out whether or not it was safe, whether it still posed a threat. He looked at it and was able to work out that there was a round in the chamber, so it was viable. He also discovered another 2 rounds in the magazine. Asked by the court, so it could have been used, he said yes. The court had earlier heard that when Thomas Mayer was arrested, they found in his pocket a bag with another 24 rounds of .22 ammunition. He is pleading not guilty to this murder charge, and the police will be continuing their evidence this afternoon.
Paul Davis live at the Old Bailey. Thank you. The Prime Minister came under pressure this lunchtime to defend the government's approach to Brexit. Theresa May insists she does have a plan to take Britain out of Europe, despite Jeremy Corbyn's repeated claims that the government had no common strategy. Our political correspondent Carl Dinnan was listening to Prime Minister's questions and joins us live from the Central Lobby, as you can see. So Jeremy Corbyn had a clear line of attack in the Commons, Carl.
Yes, he did today, Alistair. He has recognised that the government's refusal to say publicly what their plan for Brexit is can make it appear as if they don't have any plan at all. And today he was helped, inadvertently, by Boris Johnson, who had told a Czech newspaper part of what he thinks the plan could be, which is that he thinks Britain could end up leaving the European Customs Union. And when it came to Prime Minister's questions today, that put Mr. Johnson's boss, the Prime Minister, in a difficult position.
Yesterday, the Foreign Secretary told European media that Brexit would probably mean leaving the Customs Union. Can the Prime Minister confirm whether this is the case?
On the whole question of the customs union, of the trading relationships that we have with the European Union and with other parts of the world once we have left the European Union, we are preparing carefully for the formal negotiations.
And an intriguing question a little later for the Prime Minister about Mr. Nigel Farage.
Yes, very intriguing. A lot of people suddenly sat up and took notice when they heard this one, especially as viewers will be able to detect quite easily, as the Prime Minister didn't deny it.
Can the Prime Minister confirm or deny if there have been any official conversations at any level regarding giving Nigel Farage a peerage?
Well, all I can say to the honourable gentleman, I'm afraid, is that such matters are normally never discussed in public.
Now, what to make of that? Well, afterwards, the Prime Minister's official spokeswoman said the Prime Minister was only making a point about the process. It's not discussed in public. And she went on to say, honours recognise those who have contributed to society and communities. So make of that what you will. But with Nigel Farage, apparently this country's strongest link to Donald Trump's transition team over in New York, it certainly got a lot of people wondering.
Indeed so. Carl, thank you very much. And in what we call a neat segue, in the United States, there are signs of strain among the team trying to agree key positions in Donald Trump's cabinet. The president-elect has been locked in discussions in his tower block in New York, but last night, following a resignation from his team and reports that revenge led to the sacking of another advisor, he surprised everybody by stepping out for a steak. Our political correspondent Paul Brand with the latest.
As if Donald Trump didn't have enough to get his teeth into.
Thank you. We'll get your taxes down. Thank you.
Last night, this was the president-elect heading out for steak. But with just 2 months till he's supposed to move to the White House, Mr. Trump's struggling to pull together a team from his penthouse here in New York. The man who hired and fired on The Apprentice, making the drama of his top appointments sound like just another episode. Last night he tweeted, "Very organised process taking place as I decide on cabinet and many other positions. I am the only one who knows who the finalists are." The selection process has already been brutal.
Governor Chris Christie, folks, was unbelievable.
Just days after this victory speech, Chris Christie was sacked as head of the transition team, reportedly thanks to the husband of Donald Trump's daughter Ivanka, Jared Kushner. His father was jailed by Christie for tax evasion, with Mr. Trump's son-in-law now reportedly behind 2 further sackings, leaving top Republicans having to promise patience.
The president's going to be judged on the results of this administration. That's why we're very eager to get up and running, to help him with his transition, to get up and running, and then to make progress on the mandate that has just been given to us by the American people. So we're confident about moving forward. We're confident about the transition, and we're very, very excited about getting to work for the American people.
The man who's promising big change still seems to be grappling with it when it comes to his own team. Paul Brandt, ITV News.
Here, and the number of people out of work has fallen to a 10-year low, down to 1.6 million from July to August. While the figures are an improvement on the last quarter, the Office of National Statistics is warning that there are still signs the job market might be cooling. Another senior lawyer working on the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse has reportedly quit. Aileen McColgan is the third to leave this year. The inquiry has also been mired with leadership problems. Its current chair, Alexis Jay, is the fourth in 3 years. And a report into the fatal Croydon tram crash is expected later. 7 people were killed when the train derailed during morning rush hour in South London last week. The driver was arrested on suspicion of manslaughter and is currently on bail. Judges at the High Court are deciding whether to quash a report by the police watchdog into the death of a man who was tasered by police. Jordan Begley was shot with a taser in Manchester in 2013 and he died just hours later. In an unprecedented step, the Independent Police Complaints Commission has asked to overturn its own investigation. Well, Rebecca Barry is live outside the Royal Courts of Justice for us this lunchtime. Quite complex stuff, Rebecca. What have you been hearing?
Well, the family have told me that they hope the decision by the judges sitting here will allow for a new independent investigation into their loved one's death. In 2013, Jordan Begley died of cardiac arrest just 2 hours after he was tasered and restrained by police. At first, the Independent Police Complaints Commission cleared Greater Manchester Police of any wrongdoing. But, as you say, in an unprecedented step, the police watchdog then asked for its own report to be quashed. For that to happen, there needs to be a judicial review. Now, the U-turn came about after an inquest into Mr Begley's death found that the use of the taser was not reasonable, that when he was on the floor, officers didn't check to see whether he was conscious, and that the use of a second punch was not needed. Now, the judges will decide whether that original IPCC investigation conformed to the statutory requirements, and if not, it will be quashed to make room for a fresh inquiry.
Rebecca, thank you. Still to come, real or fake, the row over these sketches and whether or not they are the work of Vincent van Gogh. But first, there are calls for the RSPCA to be stripped of its ability to prosecute animal welfare cases and hand over that responsibility to the Crown Prosecution Service. A group of MPs believe that there is a conflict of interest between the charity's role as a campaigner and its power to privately prosecute. Well, the RSPCA has defended its role, citing a 92% success rate in prosecutions. A warning, you may find some of the images in Suzanne Verdi's report upsetting.
A shocking case and one of the worst injuries the RSPCA has ever seen. This is Guinness. He was found last month, dumped in the street. His collar was far too small for him and had cut into his skin, leaving an open and infected wound. Thankfully, Guinness is now fit and well. Currently, any cases of animal cruelty are prosecuted by the charity, and it's a busy job, with a call about neglect made every 4 minutes over the winter. Now, though, some MPs say the RSPCA should hand the job of prosecuting abusers to the Police and Crown Prosecution Service.
Well, we believe the RSPCA do a very good role in investigating animal welfare and problems with cruelty, but we don't actually believe necessarily they're the right person to take that, right people to take that prosecution forwards.
Last year, the RSPCA investigated more than 143,000 animal cruelty complaints. Most cruelty is aimed at dogs, with the charity seeing 81,000 cases. And they say they do a good job, as 92% of the cases they prosecute are successful. And they say that track record speaks for itself.
We have support from the police, from local authorities, from vets, from legal experts that all say we should continue.
Despite that, MPs are now asking the government to back their recommendations. The RSPCA says it'll work with the government, but says these new measures won't improve animal safety. Suzanne Verdi, ITV News.
Prince William was welcomed by hundreds of people today when he arrived in Vietnam for his first visit to the country. The royal is there as part of his campaign against poaching. This morning he chatted with Hanoi residents at a local cafe. And here, anyone looking for a bargain this Black Friday are being advised to research before buying. The consumer watchdog Which found that almost half of last year's deals were not cheapest on Black Friday, the day where retailers heavily discount goods. It found that 1 in 10 items were actually cheaper in the months leading up to the day, which this year falls on November the 25th. Now, do you find your children are better at using technology than you are? Well, that may well be expected. According to a report from the regulator Ofcom, the amount of time that children are spending using digital devices is at a record high. Children aged between 5 and 15 now look at material online for an average 15 hours a week. And even those aged under 5 are averaging over 8 hours in that period. More than a third of 3- and 4-year-olds also own their own media device. Well, to discuss that, I'm delighted to be joined from our Leeds newsroom there by Dr. Aisha Walker, who specialises in technology and learning. And here with me live in the studio is Jane Gentle from Mumsnet. Jane, I'm going to start with you first of all, because, of course, your entire organisation is based upon the internet and what have you. Yeah. Do any of these numbers surprise you, or do you say, yep, that's just what I'd have expected?
Not particular surprise. This gets talked about all the time on Mumsnet, and how to navigate the internet for our kids is a really big topic. We're talking about screen time, safety, bullying, and so on. So, yeah, I'm not surprised by the figures.
And the same question to you, Aisha. I mean, this is your field absolutely as well, but just to get common ground established first of all, the data, as it were, doesn't surprise. It is the cautionary messages that are coming from Ofcom that matter.
I'm not surprised by the figures either, and Ofcom produces, this is from the Parents and Children's Media Literacy Report, which they produce every year. What's interesting actually is the change from year to year, but no, the figures don't surprise me.
OK, let's stay with you, Aisha, then, because we've asked people on Facebook who communicate with us via that and are watching the programme for their comments. Paula Wilkinson says, my 12-year-old spends most of his free time online or on his Xbox, but he's top of the class in everything. He's polite, well-mannered, and more importantly, I know where he is 24/7. So is it a positive educational tool, in your view?
I would say that it's neither positive nor negative. It's neutral. It really depends what you do with it. So if he's spending the time that he's spending online doing things that he enjoys, and he's still doing his homework and he's still concentrating in school, then there isn't really, I think the parent is right when she says she's not worried about it. One of the things that we know children use social media for is chatting to their friends about school and homework.
Well, that brings us into what you were saying, Jane, about the cautionary points, because Ofcom also say there is a remarkable number of events where these children are being confronted by hate speech, whether it's gender, bullying, race or whatever. How do we protect them from that? Because, as Aisha's saying, that's life, that's what they do.
It's really tricky, and we're all online more. It's not just kids. So I think for us, it's how to navigate it with our children. And I think keeping the lines of communication are really open, are really important. Talking to your kids, letting them know that if they see something they don't like, they can come and tell you.
Sarah Louise Hegarty, staying with Jane, then back to you, Aisha, in a moment. Technology and TV has its place in life, but not as a replacement for quality time with parents and family.
That's true.
Old rule one.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you know, and when you've got a 5-year-old, you can really limit their time. You can really make sure that they're spending loads of time in the garden. When you've got a 15-year-old, not so easy. You know, sometimes it's the last thing they want to do. So it's about allowing them to kind of tell you if there's something wrong and trying to keep an eye on them. You can't be over their shoulder all the time.
Does that slightly contradict what you were saying a moment ago, Aisha, when you said it's neither negative nor positive? If people are using it as a means of getting out of parenting and say, yeah, you do your homework, you're on top of everything, that's fine, I'm going off to do something else. It doesn't replace quality time with the rest of the family.
We've actually, this argument is one that we've been hearing for decades. I mean, we had the argument about TV as the plug-in drug from Mara Messenger Davis way back when, and Neil Postman has written about the disappearance of childhood. I think we had this argument about TV being used as the electric babysitter. So I'd agree that we don't want to replace interaction with friends and family. At the same time, older teenagers are tending to use social media in order to engage in interaction with friends and family. So they might be using it to, as I said, to talk with school friends, or to keep up with friends that they met through various activities.
Like those
face
young
to face.
people, Aisha and Jane, we could carry on forever, but alas, time has beaten us. But thank you for your comments from Leeds, and Jane, thank you, as always, for coming in from Mumsnet. Thank you. Now, lots of debate on our Facebook, as I said. If you'd like to have your say, facebook.com/ITV News is the place to go to. And on our website, there's a poll that you can vote on. Do you think that children spend too much time online, or is it perhaps just neutral, as Aisha says? Get voting at itv.com/news. And finally, a quick reminder of our main stories this lunchtime. It's claimed the man accused of murdering the MP, Joe Cox, put his hands up and said, "It's me," moments before he was rugby tackled to the ground by officers. Thomas Mair was allegedly carrying a bloody knife and a bag of bullets. The Prime Minister came under pressure today to defend the government's approach to Brexit. Theresa May insisted that she does have a plan to take Britain out of Europe. The discovery of more than 60 sketches thought to be by Vincent van Gogh has excited much of the art world, with the find hailed as revolutionary. But not everyone is convinced that Van Gogh is the man behind the drawings from the late 19th century. The Van Gogh Museum in Amsterdam said the sketches were simply imitations and could not be attributed to the master. Jenny Longden has the full story.
A revolutionary discovery of drawings by one of the world's most famous painters, or some clumsy imitations. A Canadian arts professor claims this collection of more than 60 drawings are the work of Vincent van Gogh. They were reportedly discovered in the southern French city of Arles, near a hotel where the Dutch artist used to stay. They include an apparent self-portrait and drawings of haystacks and sunflowers, which all feature heavily in his most famous work. But within minutes of the book's unveiling in Paris, the Van Gogh Museum, the world's leading authority on the artist, waded in to say it wasn't his work.
An important aspect of the drawings that we have seen is that they are drawn in brown ink. In the period when he was living in Arles and Saint-Remy, the drawings cover a period of 2 years. Van Gogh only used black and incidentally purple ink, not brown ink.
The experts behind the discovery hit back, accusing the museum of jealousy.
Some of these drawings had been viewed by the Van Gogh Museum before me in high definition photographs. My problem with that is that you do not do or render any opinion on an attribution of any kind of work through a photograph alone.
Several other experts agree the sketches are genuine.
When I know something is a Van Gogh, I know it's a Van Gogh.
The museum, however, are standing firm. This, they say, is not the work of the Dutch master. Jenny Longden, ITV News.
And that is it from us. The entirely authentic ITV Evening News is at 6:30, but for now, from all of us, bye-bye.